I have this one
Oh wow.
and this one.
Wow, Dragon. Hi there, viewers. Today I'm joining a conversation with author Donna Sundblad, the author of The Inheritance and quite a lot of other books that she has authored. It's a pleasure to have Donna featured on English Literature. Welcome to the show, Donna.
Hello, Peter. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you on the show. I'm excited to speak to you so we can talk about The Inheritance and your other books.
That sounds great. The Inheritance is a Christian allegory, and it tells the story of a young man's quest to find the truth in the way to the eternal city. This is the most recent cover with my new publisher, Spiritual Journey.
Oh,
I grew up in a religious home, and I had a belief in God and in the Bible. And in my head, I believed it was God's word, but I didn't read the Bible. We didn't
oh
even
wow.
have a Bible. We didn't even have a Bible. How can you really believe what you don't know?
Wow.
And so as an adult, I sent my children to religion classes, and they came home with teachings that were different than what I had been taught when I was a child. And some things that were sin for me when I was growing up were no longer sin for my children. And I said, how can what sin is change? That didn't make sense to me. If God said something was a sin, then how would it change? So I turned into a seeker.
Wow.
And so the main character in my story starts out as a seeker.
Oh,
And in the inheritance, it's an allegory, so names have a special meaning, and like places have a meaning, and the names of characters have a meaning, which give it another layer of the meaning to the story. So in the inheritance, the character's name is Jejun, and it
oh,
means incomplete. And one of the reasons I named him that is because he felt like something was missing in his life, like he had a hole that needed to be filled.
oh,
And so he searches for the truth, even as he's growing up in the town of Lofty Thought.
wow.
And I chose the name of Lofty Thought for that village from in scripture, 2 Corinthians 10:5, it says, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and
Hmm,
bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ.
absolutely.
Well, every high thing in that verse is referring to your opinions or philosophies.
Your
And
debate.
so I had him growing up in the village of Lofty Thought,
Hmm,
and there people were rewarded with rings on their sleeves for every theory they could come up with how you get to the eternal city.
wow,
And the more rings you had, the more revered you were.
wow.
So as the story opens, he's facing his coming of age ceremony, and he should receive his first ring, but he's struggling. He's questioning how all these different theories can be right when they don't agree with each other.
Hmm,
And it gets lofty thought. And he goes on a quest with his sidekick, which I named Wiggle Watt. Well, the word Watt means knowledge, and wiggle means you sort of vacillate, moving. So that, and she's dressed like a royal person,
hmm,
and she gives him a music box.
wow,
And as he listens to the music, she's telling him, go back to lofty thought. You're going to be a great ruler.
wow.
Everybody's going to honor you. And he's thinking, I like this. And then after old, she has wings. And she says her name is Wisdom. He goes, wait a minute. The other lady said she was Wisdom. She says, oh, that's my sister Worldly. I am Heavenly Wisdom. And so she gives him the key of knowledge and the feather of wisdom.
Wow. That's
And
thing.
yeah, it's got so much symbolism. She tells him that his journey is going to be full of trouble, but that he will always have what he needs, and that he is to enter the valley of shadow and to go follow the way less traveled.
Wow. Wow. I love the sound of the book. I love the sound of the inheritance. Now, Donna, I also see that you have another book titled Dragonborn. For readers who haven't read Dragonborn yet, without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect picking up Dragonborn?
Absolutely. Here's Dragonborn.
Beautiful.
And I'm excited about this book. This is actually the first book in a series. It'll be 4 books.
Wow.
And it's an epic fantasy that travels through time with generations of humans and dragons learning to work together to rid the world of an evil that lives within an indestructible book called the Book Darkmoor. Dragonborn follows the journey of a young prison guard named Irvig Greenfield as he seeks the help of the dragon to remove a curse that was placed on him from using that magic from that evil book. And the dragons offer him the help he's looking for. They offer access to the labyrinth of times, which will purge the dark magic, but there's a catch. He must take the dragon oath. It's an oath of secrecy, which requires him to fight alongside the dragons for centuries, never to return to his own time.
Wow.
So when he agrees and takes the oath, he becomes Dragonborn, granting him a long life and magical power stemming from the dragons. No 2 Dragonborn are gifted in the same way. So it's a story filled with magic and adventure and time travel and sacrifice for the greater good as Dragonborn travel to the past to change the future.
Wow. I love the sound of Dragon Ball. It sounds very amazing and quite intriguing to me. Now, I just want to ask you, Donna, as authors, we all have different ways of reacting to feedbacks and criticism of our works. I'm curious to know your opinion about criticism. How do you react to negative criticism of your books, if you've ever had one in time past?
Well, I've done this a long time, enough that it doesn't bother me as much as it used to, but I have to admit it still bothers me when I first read the critical or negative feedback. But I've learned to shake it off faster. We have to realize as authors that not every book is for everybody. And as a book reviewer, I say up front to people that I don't review horror or erotica because those books don't interest me. And if I read a book and I can't give it at least 3 stars, I tell the person I can't review their book. Because I don't really want to give them a negative. Just because it wasn't for me doesn't mean it's not going to be for anybody.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
So for me, I know that people who want steamy romance in their fantasy will not enjoy my book.
Oh.
Because my characters hold traditional values, and today not everyone likes that. But as a writer, we need to be true to ourselves and write the stories within ourselves and the kind of story we would like to read. That's all we can do.
Yeah, I love that. I love your opinion about this. It really makes for an interesting discussion. I love that. Now, Donna, you also have a book titled Pumping Your Muse. Could you tell us a bit about that also?
Sure. That Pumping Your Muse is the first book I ever published.
Oh.
It's a book for writers designed to jumpstart their imagination. I had so many people say, "Where do you get your ideas? Where do you get your ideas?" And so I have a very active imagination. And one day, as I was walking along, I thought, what if I was only 1 inch tall when I was walking here? What would my world be like then? And I came back and I tried to describe it. So those kind of things. So this book, each chapter has a little series of exercises that build on the next one. And Each chapter extracts elements from the real world and uses them to construct a believable fictional realm. And doing that gives birth to natural, like organic characters. And so, for instance, on another walk, I noted everything that I could hear and I could smell, and I listed it. And when I came back and I sat down at the computer, I looked at the list and I said, what's the ratio? Well, we hear a lot more than we smell things, but we see a lot more than we hear and smell. But in our writing, many writers just put what they see and hardly ever mention what they are hearing and what they are smelling. So what I do with that exercise is encourage people to bring those senses into their writing within that same ratio, so that you get all the little sounds that you might not think to put in there, but when you do put it in there, it makes the scene more alive. And another kind of exercise I would use is called the flip side, where you take your scene and you flip certain elements of it, and it makes a whole new thing where your thoughts are forced to go down a new path, and it's like a discovery of something new, and you can actually often use that in your scene, but you wouldn't have thought of it unless you forced yourself down that path.
Wow.
So that book is not available anymore other than Kindle, but I do have it as a PDF. If anybody did want a copy, I could send them a copy for like 99 cents as a PDF.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's quite great. That's quite amazing. And I love the sound of it. Now, I'm also curious to know, Donna, if you experienced any challenges while writing your book. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it?
Well, writing a book is full of challenges.
Absolutely.
The biggest one is getting it written. I can tell you, I can't say, there have been so many people that come up to me and they say, I have a great idea for a book, and they tell me about it and they talk for a half an hour, and 10 years later, they haven't started it. It's still just an idea because they didn't start writing. And it's the same way once you start writing, you have to work on it diligently if you hope to finish it.
Absolutely.
So it takes dedication. And for myself, one of the things that helps me is I set goals. At the beginning of the year, I look ahead at the whole year and say, where do I want to be at the end of this year with this book? Okay, so I set my goals. And then each month I look at those goals and I set monthly goals, which are based on that. So I can take those steps toward getting the original thing done. But then each week I look at the monthly goals and I set my week goals on that. So each week I know this is what I need to get done. So by the end of the year, I have accomplished much of what I had hoped on. And it helps me because when I sit down at the computer and know it's time to write, I know where my focus is. I look at my weekly goals and say, this is the next scene I have to write. So I know it's not like, well, what should I do? No, I know I need to write this scene. And as you do that, a lot of times you come across other challenges, like as you do your research, you realize, oh, this thing I already wrote doesn't quite work with what I've just learned. So instead of getting distracted and going back and changing it right then, I make myself a note and say, you have to go back and change this. Stay focused, keep working on what you're working on, and then go back and work on your notes.
Wow. Wow, that's quite amazing. I love your method and I love everything you've shared. They are quite educative. Now, I also see, Donna, that you have a book titled Beyond the Fifth Gate. Could you tell us a bit about that also without giving much spoilers away?
Sure. This book is no longer in print, but I still have a copy of it.
Oh,
And it is still available on Kindle. And again, if somebody wants it, I could send them a PDF of it for 99 cents. This is a sci-fi fantasy, and the protagonist is a strong female character named Alita. She grows up as a captive of an insectoid race. And as the story opens, she's in her 20s, and her reality is one of forced labor. She lives in a hive complex where humans are forbidden to speak, write, or read. And the promise of freedom swells when the prophetic conjunction of 5 planets marks the long-awaited Kamali cycle. But first, as the chosen, Alita has to travel through 5 mystical gates during the planet's conjunction and return to Haldus with items key to their freedom. So Alita follows Kamali's light into a cave in the eastern foothills. The portal closes behind her, and the first gate opens, and it's a one-way quest into strange worlds and a race against time to collect what she needs from beyond each gate and get back to free her people. So that's the basics of that story.
Wow. I love the sound of that. I love it. Sounds very intriguing. I also want to ask you, Donna, apart from the books we've mentioned so far, Dragonborn, Inheritance, the other ones you just finished talking about, do you have other works that you've authored or currently working on? And I would love you, if you have them, you can show them to the camera, if that'll be fine.
I don't have anything in that I can hold up. I'm currently almost done with book 2 in the Dragonborn series.
Oh,
It's called Shadow Walkers, and I expect it to be out this summer. It's that close. I mean, I have probably about 5 or 6 more scenes, and then I have to read through the whole thing and send it to the beta readers and then to the editor and all of that stuff. But it's almost done.
yeah.
So that one picks up with the next generation of Dragonborn. It includes some of the characters people meet in book 1, and it introduces new characters that people can fall in love with. That includes a couple of what I call shadow walkers. And I don't want to say too much about it because it could spoil the story, but I'm just really excited about it and moving forward.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so Donna, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? What are the challenges you've encountered in terms of marketing your books? And what are the mediums you've utilized so far in promoting your books? That again.
Well, publishing is a challenge. Today, there are many companies out there that want to take advantage of people who want their books published. So if they want money from you just for publishing, forget it. That is not what you want. They're not your friend. You can always publish on Amazon and it won't cost you. So if you want to do that, if you go the self-publishing route, I recommend you pay an editor to edit your book. Some small presses provide editing for a fee, so you could always do that as well. The main complaint I have with self-published books is that they need editing. I'm not even one of those people who thinks the book has to be perfect, but if you hole or some other inconsistency or even an overabundance of redundancy, it can make a good story a poor read. And so an editor is your friend. As for promotion, the biggest challenge is getting reviews, I think. Reviews are helpful to other readers looking to buy a book, and they are helpful to authors to get their books noticed. It's one of the reasons I started my book review blog, to help other authors and to be an encouragement. And in some ways, promotion is easier than it used to be because of social media.
Absolutely.
I promote on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, my blogs and TikTok, but the downside is it all takes time away from your writing. However, even when you go through a traditional publisher, they will expect you to have promotional plan.
Absolutely.
So in today's publishing world, that falls on the shoulder of the author.
Wow, that's great. I love your thought and I love your answers to these questions. They're quite educative and very great. I'm picking some things and I'm learning a lot. Now, I also want to ask you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I also want to ask you, Donna, is there anything that you love to share with the viewers about your books that we couldn't mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know?
Well, I could tell you how I first self-published for a while. Okay. It happened when The Inheritance was first published. I had a publisher, Pumping Your Muse and Fifth Gate, and all those were with that publisher. And then when The Inheritance came out, it was nominated for an award.
Wow.
And I was stunned. It was an award called the Epi Award back then. And it was just for ebooks, but in the spiritual category, my book came in the top 3.
Wow.
And so I was on top of the world. I was so excited. And it was up there with the link for the book. And then unexpectedly, the owner of the publishing company passed away.
Oh.
And they closed their doors just like that. It was all closed. I didn't have a publisher. I had a book nominated for an award and I had no publisher. I had a link and it went nowhere.
Wow.
So what was I going to do? I certainly didn't have time to try and query all these different publishers and give a pitch and all this. So I went straight away and I used Amazon at that time to self-publish my stuff so that I had a link that would work for my book for that award.
Wow. Wow.
My older books are still self-published over there. I just left them there. And now I with The Inheritance and Dragonborn, my publisher is Each Voice Publishing in Atlanta.
Oh, that's great. That's amazing. And I also want to ask you, Donna, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book like yours? What would you tell people in this category?
Well, as you can probably tell, I'm never short on advice. As for self-publishing, I say don't be afraid to self-publish. But if you do self-publish, run your book through the process of having beta readers who offer constructive criticism and be sure to have it edited. And if you don't want to self-publish, research publishers while you're writing your book because it takes time. Make a list of possible publishers and make a list of what you want of what they want when you submit. Do they only want first 3 chapters? Do they want the whole book? Do they accept email submissions? Have a submissions page where you upload your manuscript or something else? What formats do they accept? Some want a specific font and a font size and all of that. So all of those things are important because if you don't listen to their submission guidelines, your book will be rejected and they didn't even look at it because you picked a wrong font size.
Yeah, that's true.
But here's the important thing. Don't contact them until you have the entire manuscript. Because if they like it and ask for the complete manuscript and you have 3, you're in trouble. And it can cost you the opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you'd be like, oh, why did I do that? Also check that if the publishers accept simultaneous submissions. Because if they don't, then you can't submit your book elsewhere until you hear from them. The first publisher I pitched Dragonborn to, it took a year for me to hear back from them that they thought the story was good, but it was not what they were looking for. So for a whole year, I couldn't even submit anywhere else.
Wow.
So I'm just saying, look at all of that so you know what you are actually committing to, because you don't think it's going to take a year, but it usually takes at least 6 months. And so that's 6 whole months you're not submitting it elsewhere. So I really like to find the ones that will accept simultaneous submissions and that you can just let them know somebody else accepted it.
Oh, wow. That's great. I love all of these things you mentioning and talk about. So Donna, where can viewers get a copy of your book in case we have people who would love to get a copy? On what platform are they available on? Okay,
so The Inheritance and Dragonborn are available in print and electronic formats. So you can buy them at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, Google Play, Kindle, Nook, and Kobo. And the other books that we were talking about, they're only available as Kindle, or I can send them as a PDF if people request them for 99 cents.
Wow, that's great. And I've left a link in the description part of this interview to the purchase page on Amazon, and Barnes& and Nobles, and Kobo's, and other platform for viewers who will be interested in getting a copy. So thank you so much, Donna, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
And it's been such a pleasure for me too, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my joy.